Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. As always, I'm your host, Coleman Hodges. Joining me today, SwimSwam co-founder, Olympic gold medalist, Mel Stewart. Joining us today, we've got a very, very special guest. She is the four-time open water head coach of the U.S. World Championship team. She's the 2020 open water head coach, 2021 Olympic open water head coach. She was with the USC Trojans for 12 seasons, associate head coach for 4 of those. Before that, she coached 3 seasons at her alma mater, UNC. And before that, she swam at UNC, had a number of accolades there collegiately in her own right. Catherine Kase. Catherine, how's it going?
Hi, Coleman. Thank you.
Women in Aquatics award winner. We have to drop that in. We wanted to bring you on because you're being honored, and we just full disclosure in the background. We were trying to understand the meaning of this honor, and I'm literally sitting here reading the history. I had no idea it went back to 1979. It has a long list of some of the greatest female coaches in swimming. So, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It is a great honor, and I feel fortunate to be in conversation with a lot of the past winners. And I think that 2020 has been a really interesting year, and we're all doing our best, and we keep learning. And when you get some good news, it's good to celebrate it this year. So I'm excited, and thank you so much.
So you are the 2020 woman in swimming officially, and we're going to get to the bottom of why. Not that I'm questioning it. I know you're very deserving of this award, but I've never gotten the chance to really sit down and have a conversation with you, especially about your background in swimming, which, again, like we said, is you've got deep roots and you've been doing this at a high level for a really long time. So let's talk about your days at UNC. You were, swimming the mile. You were a distance swimmer from day one. What brought you to UNC, and what drew you to distance swimming?
Sure. Well, I think you overinflated my swimming career at UNC. I'm a much better coach than I was athlete, but I always loved swimming. I loved most of my coaches. The ones I didn't click with, I felt like I always learned something from them. I was always a really hard worker. Everything came naturally to my sister, and she was always better than I was. But I honestly just loved practice. I was coaching a little swim school during college, and my roommates would make fun of me and say, well, I can't believe you're spending so much time at the pool. But honestly, I did. I just love swimming, and my degree's in education and psychology, which for me, that is how I show up on deck, I believe. And so I just keep finding my way, and I've been really fortunate. I loved my time at North Carolina, and when you coach at your alma mater, it's even more special because I feel like you get a chance to really know your university in a different respect. You get to see things differently, sort of behind the scenes, and I got to watch great coaches there in all sports. Because of my open water opportunities, I got to meet Dave Salo in 2007 at Pan Am's. And he texted me in 2008 and said, "Are you interested in coming out to Southern California?" I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I've been born and raised in North Carolina. This is my home." But, I had a really good girlfriend that lived there, and she said, "Oh, come on, give it a chance." So that's how I ended up at USC. But I mean, my family still lives in North Carolina, and that's always going to be a special place for me.
Where in North Carolina?
My sister's in Chapel Hill, and so are both my parents.
Nice. My soul is in North Carolina. North Carolina is a great place.
Oh, I lived in the mountains. I've lived in the beach. Grew up in the Triad. So, yeah.
When it became cool, when I was a kid, all these little towns were about 150, 200,000 people, but now it's blown up.
Completely. Yes.
Completely off topic. Going to the, swimming takes you everywhere. When you're a great coach, you move, and it seems like you have to move to further your career. Did you feel odd living in California? Was it a comfortable sock, or was it like, this is a little bit weird?
Honestly, I feel like I love saying I'm from North Carolina. Like, I'm proud of my roots. I'm proud of my education. I love that my family's still there. And the traffic was terrible, and so many different things. UNC is a public university, and then USC is private. So, I just had a lot to learn. Recruiting was different there. Lifestyle was different there. But I really feel like I have grown as a coach because I did have the opportunity, to have some different experiences. And I've always coached men and women, and I think that's sort of helped me understand both sides of, both genders. And, then I have a daughter, and I think that added another level of understanding myself, and how I coach. So California, gave me some really great opportunities and great athletes. I mean, I remember I went out to look at USC's pool deck, and I saw the record board, and it's Janet Evans and Lenny Kraselberg, and I was in awe. And so, and I think I'm very lucky. I got to be in the same place for a long time. And so, I've really tried to make the most of not getting stale or, getting stuck in a rut. And open water, being able to do that really helped. And I do have to say, I've been so fortunate to be with coaches that allowed me to go travel and be gone. I mean, who really wants their assistant coach gone for 3 to 4 weeks, and sometimes open water races and training camps. And, the coaches I worked with at North Carolina and at USC, they were really supportive. And so I have to be grateful for them.
So let's get into that open water background a little bit. You said your first open water team, 2007. How do you get selected for something like that? Like, what made you an optimal candidate in your eyes to head up open water? Obviously you swam distance in college, but was that what drew you to that event?
Well, actually it was 2005, and I was very lucky. I was in Eastern North Carolina and coaching an athlete, Chip Peterson, and still a dear friend. But I really just showed up on this pool deck, and I had a swimming background, and, I wanted to coach. And it was a really small team, the Carteret Currents. And he was an open water stud. And so I had never experienced open water before him. And so we learned a lot. I think that process of understanding your athlete and what this sport is all about, because it is different than pool swimming to an extent. And I think both of us were just really open to the journey and where it was going to take us. And in 2005, he was selected to go to World Championships. Mark Schubert, I think, was the national team director at the time, and called and said, "We'd love for you to be an assistant coach." And I was just a young coach, was excited to be with the rest of the staff. And it was Rick Walker and Denny Ryther and Steve Munitones, and Mike Schrader. And honestly, we just had the best time. And it helps to enjoy the experience when your athlete wins gold and silver. So, that definitely helped. But I think that sort of set off on the path of like, wow, I'm hungry. I want to learn more. I'm around great people. This is fun. And so I think I continue to make myself available to opportunities.
For our listeners out there, a lot of people who, we're all swimming nerds, but it's like there's swimming, and then there's breaststroke, and then there's swimming. Sorry, I have to throw breaststrokers under the bus at least once in every podcast. There's swimming, and then there's open water, and I never understood open water, and until I went to some events. But what I loved about open water, from from being indoctrinated into the culture, was that not necessarily the fastest swimmer will win, the smarter swimmer will win. And I love that. And then there's so many variables. There's a lot of luck's involved. Steve Munatonos said that there is no one out there that has your depth of experience in open water on U.S. soil. Huge accolade. If anybody knows open water, if you have a question about open water, you go to this guy. Did you swim open water? You know, it's like, how do you coach open water? No, how do you do it? Where did this deep knowledge come from? Is it just students standing on the shore?
No, you know, it's we're all still learning as coaches, and so I think it's more of like understanding and knowing the athletes that I've worked with. And I mean, Haley Anderson has been on the national team. Is it 11 straight years? You know, that in her own right. Yeah. What, Mel?
I'm saying I'm going to go to the Googles and confirm that.
Okay. Yes, I think anytime you get to work with an athlete like her, OS in 2012, I mean, they're great athletes. And so part of it is also understanding and having a relationship with them and working with, athletes that you have to really want to do open water. I mean, like you said, you can be the fastest pool trainer in the world, but it's different when you're diving into an ocean or, all of a sudden you're like, where am I? What about the course? Did I miss my feed? Where is the finish line? How many loops is this course? Who are these people around me? And so there are, like you said, it's a chess game. And I love that part about the racing strategy. And athletes, they learn each time they race. And I think the thing I've tried to do is find out what I can about the athletes that I'm working with to figure out what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what have I seen, what can I help them with? Because, there's no communication really with them throughout a race except when they swim by a feeding dock. And it's the conversation. And, John Urbanchek came to visit me in 2005, and I've always just tried to stay and talk to him as much as I can and understand, because he's, one of the best coaches I've ever known and to ever walk the earth. And I've just learned so much from watching him interact with his athletes. Going back to your question, I don't know that open water, I've been lucky to work with a lot of different national teams, a lot of different athletes, and some want to go train open water 2 hours a day. And then, you have Jordan Wilmowski maybe doesn't want to always go to open water, and that's fine. Everybody's a little bit different. So I try to account for the differences.
So, you mentioned you got your you got your degrees in education and psychology. That's your background. And that seems like, from what you've said, that is open water, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
all a chess game. Going into X race, let's say at a world championships, what are you telling that athlete? What are you preparing for? Because again, race strategy wise, in a 200 freestyle, you're the athlete and the coach have their plan. How does that racing plan differ when you're going into a 10K?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of it does come down to the trust of the athlete and the coach, and in working through different scenarios and talking through if this happens, how are you going to respond? If all of a sudden your plan was to lead and now you're in the back of the pack, how much energy do you use to get to where the aforementioned spot that we talked about? So it sort of constantly evolves throughout the race. Every coach has their thing, and I think it's important to get on a course before you swim it and sort of see the different buoys. And somebody at their first world championship, I may tell them different advice than someone, by now. I mean, Haley's a pro. She knows what she needs, where she needs to be. I think it just depends. And I'll tell you too, nationals, nationals is different because you really need to qualify first or second to make the world's team in the 10K. And so second is just as good as first. It's a whole nother ball game when you're racing 70 athletes from all over the world. I mean, the rules, I hate to say they change, but yeah, it's much different, much more challenging. And so being able to get experience racing internationally is really important. But again, I go back to 2005, and Chip had never done an international race in his life. but that race course was also a rowing basin and very flat water. So strategy is also going to come off what the course is. Is it saltwater? Rio was very wavy, and there were concerns about water quality, and Tokyo is going to be flat and it's going to be really hot. So every coach is going to have a different strategy with their athlete. And as you're walking up to the, start, they've just got to be confident. I mean, they got 2 hours to think or doubt themselves or be confident. And so having an athlete that can really be vulnerable and talk about what happened during the race and maybe what they could have done differently. I think I put a high value on that.
It feels like going to war. It feels more like you're more of a general. Is that accurate?
Oh yes. I mean, it is. You're right. The bag that I'm packing is much different for a 10K that morning than it is to go to the pool and you go to prelims. But I think that's also what I like about it. It's a really neat, unique, small knit community. And even with the foreign athletes, you get to know the coaches and you get to know the swimmers, and the respect grows over time.
And Coleman wants to nerd this up, and I'm going to let him nerd it up. But I do have to ask you this question. So you're on the FINA Coaches Committee, and you're on USA Swimming. You chair USA Swimming's Open Water Steering Subcommittee. Is this you've just got to be dialed in if you're in your position and you're leading Team USA? And what are you managing when you're on shore when you're coaching, and what are you managing behind the scenes on these committees?
Sure. On the committees, I mean, I'm with the steering committee with Open Water for USA. We're talking about how can we grow the sport? What events do we need to have? What's our funding going to look like? And, a large part of that comes from Bryce Elser, and he's done a great job, really figuring out over the last, I think, 8 years, what we need to really solidify ourselves as one of the top nations in open water. And so, with that, I think it's a conversations also with club coaches and college coaches that are actually coaching the athletes that are our potential medal hopes or getting national team experience. I'm a big fan of camps. I think camps are great. And I know a lot of times, coaches have a hard time sending their kid off to an open water camp because it's, I'm not controlling the volume and I don't know what they're doing. And there are just a lot of different variables that you can't control. So, just trying to get a sense, a pulse on open water swimming in the US and what we need to do to be winning medals at the Olympic Games and at World Championships. And then with the FINA Coaches Committee, I mean, I think that was a unique opportunity these last 4 years. There were 2 coaches from open water and I think about 8 pool coaches. And I mean, it's great to learn how FINA operates and just get some understanding of, what do we need to do to work and understand how things get done. And
Very diplomatic. I like the way you slowed that down a little bit. I just want to call you out. You slowed that down. We engaged FINA quite a bit, and we love FINA. A lot of us are FINA babies, but I just wanted to know. Yeah, you slowed that down a little bit, and it sounds like you've had to maneuver. But I want to just get a little more specific. How does USA Swimming compare to other NGBs around the world in terms of their support of open water? How do we stack up? Because it seems like you're up to your eyeballs in this, and it's not just coaching. You're building out Team USA.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the challenges we have is that we don't have a ton of race. We don't have a race series that is highly competitive on a regular basis. So if you want to compare, I mean, I have files of stats of finishes at World Championships, and the Europeans, in the last couple of years have really established themselves as the power in open water. I think that has to do with the athletes are tending to stay in the sport longer and they are a little bit older. You can find success. I think we have a college system where if you have an athlete in college, are you really going to send them to a trials April 5th after NCAAs? So sort of looking at the whole quad and each year, I think we also need to make sure we're retaining our best athletes to get them the experience they need to race. Like I said, nationals is very different. You could have somebody that wins nationals and then you get to world championships. It is a whole nother ballgame. And if you don't have any intermediate racing experience, sometimes that can be hard. And you've got to have an athlete that really is craving, that competition, to be really good at that level. How do you balance out, pool nationals with when open water nationals is? We have to travel. I mean, to be honest, we were in Doha last February, and then we had a race in Seychelles on the schedule. I mean, that is far to go. And I would love for FINA to put together, and, we all admit we want to have clusters of races. So whether it's 3 in the Americas, 3 in Europe, and then 3 in Asia, that would be great. You give athletes an opportunity to race and maybe have, a week in between to train. And again, you have to have coaches that are committed to being gone that time. You have to have athletes that are willing to be gone that long. And so, again, I think that we just have to find what's going to work for us, because I don't think we can compare to how the Italians do it, or look at them and say, well, they're doing this, we need to do this. We've got to use all of our advantages and figure out how can we, give our athletes the best chance to be competitive, and to be consistent.
So, I think like you said, open water lends itself to athletes being able to age in the sport and have a little more longevity. I know Haley Anderson is my age. I'm pretty sure she's 28. Ashley Twitchell in her 30s, I know. You have athletes like Osmaluli, but then you have, sometimes you have young athletes who can be really successful as well, at the age group level, 14, 16. Which my question is, Mel mentioned it being like war. There's so many variables. There's so much, there's a lot of luck involved in any given race. 2 hours in your own head. From your perspective, what motivates an athlete to want to get into open water? Because it compared to maybe pool swimming, it sounds really rigorous and really challenging. And so, and very, like we said, a huge chess game, so very mental. What do you see from your athletes, commonalities wise, as to why they're pursuing open water?
Sure. Well, I think it's important if you're 14 or 16 to really to make sure it's a positive experience. And that doesn't mean everybody's successful and everybody's a winner. That just means it's an experience that they enjoy that leaves them wanting to come back for more. And so maybe starting out with a 10K in the ocean against a highly competitive field, probably not the best way to get kids involved, but a couple open water swims here and there, a 5K race, a 1K, even a 3.5K in the pool. Maybe it's a competition and, somebody thrives, and maybe you see something in an athlete as a coach, like, wow, this kid can really go the extra mile or can really finish. I see a determination that I don't always see at the end of the 800. So little things like that. I think it's watching an athlete and seeing what do they get out of it and how much more do they crave. Like you said, you want it. I think we can still do a better job of retaining athletes, 14 to 17, 18, and getting them interested in getting them opportunities, that they have fun. I mean, you go on a national team, I think a lot of our, again, I always go back to this, 25K is a really, yeah. So that again is different than breaststroke or the 10K, 25K, right? A lot of our athletes that have been at the Olympic Games swam their first event in open water worlds, the 25K. So they hated it so much. They were like, I better get faster or do something different. But also maybe they just enjoyed the team meals and the open water team of being 8 to 10 people. And, if they have a great experience, they want to come back and get on the national team again or get on the junior national team. I think that's important to keep relevant as well.
I think the beauty of open water, especially at the elite level, is with all your experience and your leadership now at Team USA. I think the beauty of open water is this: when you're preparing to race, when you're preparing to go head to head, you're looking for people's weaknesses. Those weaknesses are exploited massively in open water, and that's got to be a thrill. The strategy, it's got to appeal to a certain type of athlete, and it obviously appeals to you. I would like to be a fly on the wall before these big competitions, but I'm curious, maybe it's the psychology background, because it's all in your head. This is a huge hurdle. How much of it is strategy and how much of it is, you're having a tough time right now. You're in online school, and your boyfriend or your girlfriend just broke up with you, but you got to suck it up and make this happen. I don't know how you balance that out.
Well, I think, I mean, I've had water bottles thrown at me as Haley has come through the feed, because I wasn't standing where she thought I had said I would be, when actually she apologized after the race and said, sorry. But I mean, I had some F-bombs yelled at me. I think you're right. The excitement, you're watching the 5K at World Championships or a 10K, and it's down to the last 600 or 800. And you have coaches from Brazil and France and Italy, and everybody's pacing, and some people are on their phone, and, you're texting, but you're going to drop your phone, but you better not, because it's in the water. And yeah, I mean, it gets your heart pumping as a coach, but also for the athletes, right? The thrill to have raced for 40 minutes or an hour and 40 minutes and have it all come down. It is kind of crazy to sometimes a half a second difference between first and 11th. And that,
I'm sorry, from a marketing standpoint, to me, it just seems like it'd be so much more interesting if you could talk to your swimmer and you could, and the audience could hear what's going on.
Well,
drop in and hear that.
But this is the thing, Mel, I'm not always right. And so sometimes I would want to say, like, whoa, what are they doing right now? This is the wrong move. And then 20 minutes later, I'm like, well, actually, they turned a negative into a positive. So I might have ruined it for them,
I like that. I like it when people fail, and then it's it's got to be exciting. It's got to be exciting. I'm sorry, I'm hogging. We're down to 8 minutes. We're down to 8 minutes. This is I don't want to drop a bomb on you in the last 8 minutes of our podcast, but
it's 2020.
Yeah, let's do it. I want to do it. No, we've had a lot of great women on, coaches on the podcast, and I'd say, just out of curiosity, it seems like swimming's great because if you're a woman, you can achieve exactly what a man can achieve in the pool, but in the coaching field, it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like it's a lot harder, and it seems like we have an imbalance in our community. You've been a leader and a trailblazer. What are you doing to further that? What are you doing? Are you mentoring other young women who are coaching? What's that experience like in your life?
Sure. I think you touch on a great topic. It has been difficult to make sure that I am being my best for the college team, that make sure that I am giving my all to the open water national team, to make sure that I am raising my daughter, and to make sure that I have friends and am keeping myself healthy as well. And so again, it takes a village. I mean, it takes, my family, working with other great coaching staffs. So, the entire staff when I was at North Carolina, USC, really supportive. I think at times I've had to work differently, but it took me a long time to realize or recognize what I needed to ask for. So, when Wednesday mornings I realized I was actually a horrible human to everybody around me. I just had to say to Dave, like, I don't think I can come in on Wednesdays anymore. I'm not doing a good job at anything. I'm doing a lot of things not very well. And I used to be proud that I was like this multitasker and I could do everything. And like, actually, I've realized that's actually not the best way for me to work or operate. And I really need to focus on what burner I have up. And if it's coaching that day, then that's what it is. If it's a weekend with my family, that's exactly what it is. But I have gotten to understand myself better over the years. And so having perspective, and also not worrying so much all the time about other people, what they think, or somebody's reaction. I I've really honestly tried to be the best self that I can be. And I can't try to be anybody else. I can't be Dave, I can't be Terry. I can't be, and I have to say Cindy Gallagher has been a really great mentor for me and has always made time when I have questions or I'm freaking out about something. She and Terry both always make time to talk to me. And I haven't been afraid to ask questions. I think sometimes women are afraid to ask, but not just women, but anyone. I mean, I have no problem going up to any coach and just figuring out what works for them. How do they do things on their staff? Because we can keep learning how to do things better and to be consistent and just kind of give ourselves a break at times.
Do you spend, when you have downtime, are you scrolling through Instagram or are you scrolling through Swim's database looking for the 11 and 12-year-old, 13, 14-year-old who's cranking it out in distance? What does that ever do? I'm wondering if you're searching for talent. Who's the next?
I was doing social media until I watched The Social Dilemma, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to get off all social media. I can't help. I'm always looking at SwimSwam regardless. And I don't know if I have recently relocated to Idaho. So yeah, I'm here and it's been great for my family. And I thought I was going to have a lot more time. And actually now I'm actually helping out at Boise State, coaching some of the girls, and I'm going to be mentoring the coaches at my daughter's swim team, the Boise Swim Club. So I really thought I would have a couple months after 2020, but you just can't stay away.
I don't think that's how the Olympic head coach's life goes. I don't think you get time.
And now it's going to be more chunks of time, which I'm really good with, because I feel like I don't have college pulling at me, and I will really be able to fully invest when I do travel or when I'm gone and be 100% invested with the athletes and Team USA. And I have more time for that.
I bungled my question, and I want to bring it back because you didn't answer it. Are you looking for, do you comb the Swim's database looking for young talent that's got it in distance? Is that something, maybe you don't, maybe they just percolate and they show up and they're like, they got a nice little bow on them, but I didn't know if you were researching.
No, I think obviously you're always reading the highlights of things, but again, I think you have to see who is going to sort of come to the top. It's more of like at nationals, at an open water race or something. But the other day I texted Bryce. I'm like, listen, is Zane going to be done after this year? Because he was really good in the 5K. And yeah, so, you're constantly thinking of different athletes and, we got to put together a good relay at Open Water Worlds. And what does our future look like? Because we have 3 awesome veterans going to Tokyo with Jordan, Ashley, and Haley. And, the door's wide open after this. And so hopefully, like you said, there's an 11 or 14-year-old out there and maybe they get inspired.
We're down to 2 minutes, so I have to ask you this, a very serious question. Mostly swim parents and coaches listen to the podcast. It skews a little older, so you can answer this completely honestly. Do you hate sprinters?
No. Are you kidding? I get to talk to them more. One of my favorite people to work with Jessica Hardy. She, I learned so much from watching her train and her attitude. And I think, look, open water kids have to sprint at the end, right? So I still have a lot to learn about that.
I was waiting for you. I was waiting for you to drop it. It's like, Mel, you're ignorant. The 10K is a sprint.
Yes. I don't know why there can't be like at nationals, 100-yard open water, just buoy to buoy. Wouldn't that be great to see?
It's real swimming.
I'd love it. I think that sounds great. We're down to our last minute. Catherine, will you come back to the podcast if we have open water questions as we're getting closer to the Olympics, so you can give us a good idea of what to expect in Tokyo 2021?
Oh, I would love to tell you what I expect, but we're still just with open water. You wait to make sure that everything's set. So do I think it's going to be in Odaiba Bay? I think so. Not sure. Still waiting to see. I mean, I don't. How does the Olympic Games look? I don't know. But I can tell you the athletes will be prepared to swim whatever the conditions are. You know, they're going to be able to swim in hot water. They're going to be able to swim in the ocean or flat water, whatever it is. And they all still have a chance to make the pool team as well. So, you know, I think that's going to be really exciting for all three of them.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.